Something that always seems to get thrown under the cover and not really talked about much in terms of when we talk about rules packages in NASCAR is the 2015 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series season. That was a season of a lot of change and a lot of testing going on in terms of races. We had three different packages used in 2015 during the regular season, all within race conditions. So it was the best way to test different packages and see how they went. But to start off with how this all came about, let's go back to 2014. In 2014, NASCAR changed the rules package from the 2013 one slightly to try to, quote, improve racing at 1.5 mile and 2 mile tracks. At the time, it didn't really seem like anything happened, anything changed. Now, when you look back at it, it seems to be like everyone loves that season for some reason. When the season was happening, though, when it was actually 2014, it was just another season. There was never really talked about how great the season was. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, it's another NASCAR season, whatever. But back in 2014, there was an 8-inch spoiler in 900 horsepower, unrestricted engines, and an 8-inch spoiler on the back of the car. During testing, at the end of the 2013 season, before the 2014 season, it is said that, quote, the use of a roof strip as well as a tapered spacer that decreases horsepower are also tested, but are not a part of the rules package. Obviously, the tapered spacer comes in 2015. The roof strip, though, never comes. That would basically be like a wicker bill that we saw on the plate packages back around 2001 in the Cup Series. And then we go to 2015, where they actually reduced the spoiler size a little bit down to 6 inches. However, they use a tapered spacer on the car, which decreased the horsepower by 150 down to 750 horsepower. And then throughout the season, there wasn't really much that happened that was great. It's a lackluster season, to be perfectly honest. 2015 is a season where really not much happens. There weren't really many great moments that happened throughout the 2015 season, which led NASCAR to look into some changes. They said that overall green flag passes were down from last year. Quote, it is the second most in the loop the loop data era, but it is down for 2014. NASCAR didn't like that. Another thing that NASCAR is worried about was the fact that corner speeds were so high. Since there was less horsepower, there was more on throttle time, which meant that the cars were easier to travel through the corners, which made corner speeds a lot higher. NASCAR is afraid of that. So they come up with two packages to be testing out. They have a low downforce package and a high downforce package, each to be used at 2 races during the season. The low downforce package made its debut at Kentucky and also ran at Darlington in the Southern 500, and the high downforce package debuted at Indianapolis and was also used at Michigan. All those races were in the second half of the season. And basically what it delivered were some interesting results. The low downforce package used a 3.5-inch spoiler with, of course, the tapered spacer. The high downforce package used a 9-inch spoiler, looking to increase drag and decrease the speeds I guess they could get on the straightaways, while the low downforce package was going to make the cars hard to drive, which means they had to let off more in the corner. The results that came were Michigan and Indianapolis were nothing to look at. Kentucky maybe had its best race ever in the Cup Series, and Darlington had one of its better races in a long time. So what we saw was a huge change that came about, where it seemed like low downforce was the way to go in NASCAR. Kentucky had maybe its best race ever in the Cup Series. I say that 2015 is probably the best Cup Series race at Kentucky I've ever seen. Darlington, that was one of the better Darlington races I've ever seen, was the 2015 with the low downforce package. Michigan was basically follow the leader, and Indianapolis was Indianapolis. I can't really say anything about that because Indianapolis is pretty bad no matter what, but it still wasn't great. It didn't really improve anything. You look at like 2014 and all that stuff, it didn't really improve anything. And then we go on to 2016. NASCAR says, okay, we're going to use the low downforce package. NASCAR then goes to the 3.5-inch spoiler for 2016. It is a success. 2016 was a pretty good season in the first half. 2017 comes along, and they reduce the downforce even more. They get an even smaller spoiler on the car. 2018 comes around. They have that same spoiler on the car that they had in 2017. But throughout 2018, fans grow restless of the fact that there are not many winners, and maybe the on-track action that is happening is lackluster. So then NASCAR comes up with the idea in the All-Star race. We'll put a plate on the car, on the engine. We'll see how that works. It creates some pack racing, but still doesn't really help much. NASCAR goes along with that, puts a tapered spacer on the car, reduced the horsepower by 200 more down to 550 horsepower. Remember, 2014, just 5 years ago, it was at 900 horsepower. Reduces that, and also puts an 8-inch spoiler back on the car, the same height it was in 2014, which is kind of crazy because it looks very tall now, but I guess it's because we're so used to seeing the smaller spoiler on the car from the past few seasons. But the thing that really just kind of makes me think is that back in 2015, when we tested two different packages, one that is basically used now and one that was used for 3 years, and the one that was low downforce produced better racing at the racetracks, and at one racetrack, which normally does not produce great racing. In 2014, 2013, 2012, 2011, the Kentucky race was nothing to look at. In 2015, it was one of the better races of the season. It produced a great race there. For Darlington, it was probably the best race there since maybe 2011, and Indianapolis, it wasn't any better than 2014, probably worse than 2014. And for Michigan, it was not great at all. Like, Matt Kenseth dominated. There was barely any competition at the front. When Kenseth took the lead, he never looked back unless it was green flag pit stops or whatever. So what the package maybe did was make the numbers look better, but did it pass the eye test? I've always talked about numbers on these types of videos, where quality passes, lead changes, all that stuff. And while that is nice to look at, the best test you can ever have in terms of packages or a race, the eye test. What's the eye test? How'd the race look? That's all it is. Did you enjoy the race? Did you see it like it was? Did you see it? Did you like what you saw with your own two eyes? Ignore all the numbers. You watching the TV, did you like it? Yes or no? That's the best test. In 2015, the two low downforce packages passed the eye test. The high downforce packages did not pass the eye test. Fast forward now to the present, where we have a super high downforce package with low horsepower. And now we basically went the opposite direction of where we thought we were going to be going in 2015. The question is, why did NASCAR do this? We don't really know. Back in 2015, it looked like low downforce was the way to go. And it worked for a few years. We got some great races. And now we're back to the high downforce. Granted, the high downforce with the 550 horsepower, it made some races better, but hasn't really improved it that much to where, it's worth staying. Do you want to make about 55 to 60% of the fan base mad that you're using this? It's kind of like I talked about NASCAR Civil War back after the Dover race, where drivers were kind of going against each other, fans were going against each other. A lot of the changes NASCAR makes divides the fan base in half so much. The chase is one example of that. I would say maybe about 60-70% of the fans hate the chase. The other percent, they're there fighting their case. For this downforce package, I would say about 60% are against it, 40% are for it. It split the fan base, it split the drivers, it split the media members, it split a ton of people up. And it's just kind of like, what are we doing this for? In 2018, this is something that I saw when doing research for this back around 2013, the end of 2013. They actually interviewed Jeff Burton about the rules package and how he thought about it. And he said something to the result of, we're not going to always have 3-ride racing every single lap at Texas. That's just not going to happen. You're not going to have a Game 7 moment every single race. That's going to happen. That's what makes those races special. If every race looks like Daytona Talladega, it makes nothing special. It just oversaturates it. That's what kind of happened with 1.5 milers. We oversaturated the market. You could throw in, if we had 4 or 5 1.5 mile races or 4 or 5 1.5 mile tracks throughout the season, that would be perfectly fine. But we put Atlanta, Chicago, Kentucky. We put Kansas at 2 races. Michigan has 2 races. That's basically, 1.5 miler. It's just kind of oversaturated the market at that point. Now we want more short tracks. Obviously, though, short tracks probably won't oversaturate the market, because when is a short track race ever really bad? But so in my opinion, you're gonna have the good seasons, you're gonna have the bad seasons. That's just something that's gonna come along with it. It's gonna happen. It happens under every package. No matter what package you're gonna put forth, there's gonna be a bad season, there's gonna be bad races. There's gonna be good races, there's gonna be good seasons. It happens. It's a cycle. I don't think we should be forcing stuff like this to be happening. It's not natural. It's more fabricated, if you will. But like Jeff Burton said, you're not going to have a Game 7 moment every single race. That's just not going to happen. And that's what makes the races that happens like that special. Chicago last year is so special because we had maybe 3, 4, 5 good races before it. And we were about 20 races into the season. And then Chicago came around and produced the best 1.5 mile race I've ever seen and had an amazing finish. And then we went on a string of great races. The Daytona night race was pretty good. The Loudon race was excellent, especially for Loudon standards. You go to Pocono, which was one of the better Pocono races in recent memory. Watkins Glen was an amazing race. Bristol night race was probably the best race of last season and maybe the best Bristol race I've ever watched in my life. And then you go to Indianapolis, which was better than normal. Darlington was not bad. It was decent. Las Vegas had maybe its best race in a long, long time there. The Roval was absolutely outstanding. And then you go to, places like Martinsville, which had one of its better races there. Phoenix was amazing. Homestead was incredible. We had so many good races at the end of last season. That goes to kind of say, was it the broadcast fault maybe? Because then we go and we look back at Fox's portion. Was it really great? It wasn't the best. If I can count on probably one hand the good races. Bristol, Richmond, Kansas. Were maybe the 3 good races that Fox had during their stint. Now the question is, was that because Fox did a bad job at showing how it was? Or is it because the racing was bad? Did like a switch just suddenly get flipped like that? And like the racing just got better once NBC took over? I don't think so. I think the fact of the matter is Fox wasn't doing a great job at showing it. And here's the reason why. The Coke 600 last year. In my opinion, take away Kyle Busch dominating and leading basically every lap and winning the race. And the race second on back was incredible. So, if I just ignore Kyle Busch and the 2018 Coke 600 and one of the better races of last season. Now, Fox actually showed battles behind second on back during that race. And it made the race, the racing, experience better. It made the viewing experience better. Fast forward to this year in 2019. We go to Kansas, which had battles throughout the field. Fox shows the battles throughout the field, and it looks like an incredible race. Whereas maybe they go to Las Vegas and they don't show battles throughout the field. The question is, why is it at some points they show battles but other points they don't? That's my reasoning about it. Everyone always says, and I even say this, attending the races makes the races better, because it is. You can focus on whatever you want to focus on. You can look around the track. Oh, look at their side by side, their nose to tail there. I'm going to focus on that because it's going to be a battle. Fox, I feel like the TV broadcasters need to get better at showing the races like they do. Because right now I feel like Fox is really falling behind NBC. I actually just recently went back and rewatched the Loudon race from last year, which NBC broadcasted, and I swear to God, in the first stage, they barely showed the leader because the leader got ahead. Kurt Busch got ahead to the lead and never looked back. And they rarely showed the leader in the first stage because it didn't matter much. And that's something that they should do. If there's no battle for the lead, don't show the lead. There's not a need to show the lead unless you want to update on the leader. But kind of getting off track from the 2015 experiment. So why did it change? I don't know why NASCAR's philosophy changed. In my opinion, 2015 I think was about around the time the start of the Drivers' Council started. That may have happened around 2014 when the Drivers' Council started. And maybe at that point, some drivers said low downforce the way to go, and some said high downforce. So maybe NASCAR tried the two, and then they picked low downforce because it worked better. The question is, what changed from 2015 to 2019 to say, oh, we want this high downforce instead of the low downforce? And also, the big question is, I know the whole reason they went down to 550 horsepower is to attract new manufacturers into the sport, because no one wants to make a 750 horsepower engine or something like that. They want to make 550 horsepower engines, so they want new manufacturers. That's all fine and dandy. Once we get to maybe where where they say, hey, you need to use a 550 horsepower engine, and we don't have tapered spacers on the engines, then there's going to be more throttle response. Maybe the racing will be better. But the big question is, why'd they choose high downforce this season? Why didn't they say, hey, let's try low downforce with this package too? Did they try that? Or was that something that just got pushed aside? Why didn't we have a 550 horsepower package with low downforce? Because everyone complains about dirty air now. So why didn't we just go to low downforce with this package? What changed? I don't know. What's the reasoning from going from a 2-inch spoiler up to an 8-inch spoiler again? I have no clue. That's a big change for 1 year, and it's kind of, NASCAR never really said why they made the changes they did. They said about why they said to obviously try to improve the overall racing, and the fact of the matter was they didn't want to create pack racing and whatnot, but they kind of have at some racetracks. But the whole thing is why didn't they just go to low downforce? Why didn't they stick with the 2-inch tall spoiler and 550 horsepower? Why'd they do what they did? I'll never know. But if they told us more about why they did what they did, we wouldn't be left in the dark. But right now, no one really knows why they made the changes they did, and I wish they would at least test a low downforce package with the 550 horsepower, because in my opinion, it can maybe improve the dirty air situation that the leaders are in, because that was a big change in terms of the spoiler height back around 2015. From 2014 to 2015, the whole thing was to try and in fact, a quote from NASCAR was to reduce the dirty air that the lead car gave off its own car. So that was the 2015 experiment. It worked well. Got us to low downforce. And then the stats and all the stuff we learned from 2015 in terms of van view and driver view, we threw out the window for 2019 package. Whoops. So, thanks for watching. Hopefully that enlightened some of you in terms of what happened in terms of, that's the 2015 is really the start of talking about aero packages and rules packages and low downforce versus high downforce. So, that was the season that started it. And it's been just an everlasting battle since then. Hopefully we can just decide on a package for once and for all and keep it like that for at least 5 years. Because when was the last time we had a package straight for 5 years? I can't remember it. We switch packages so often, it's pretty ridiculous at this point. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys for the next video.